Welcome back to the Cal Park Bros podcast. Jason and I are fresh off dissecting the words and the wisdom of one Kirk Herbstreit. Emphasis Herb.
I haven't heard that term in so long, bro.
Ah,
Oh Lord,
I can assure you that is not something you want to be called.
I'm gonna be saying that all day now. Tomorrow, the people just like, what? I'm like, what's a herb? What's a herb? I'm like, you don't want to know.
Dog. Guys, this is a segment we've been waiting for. This that made us want to do an all sports Cal Park Bros podcast.
All football, by the way, all football to be specific.
So a lot of people have been regaling in the life and the cultural significance of one John Madden. John Madden passed away earlier this December 29th. And I think the biggest thing that we can do is talk about what he's done for the game of football. And when I say cultural significance, I mean it, because the football that you know and love, that you watch every Sunday, it would not be there without John Madden. The first thing I want to start with, John Madden, a lot of people only know John Madden from his commentary. John Madden, which is when this part's crazy to me, he didn't even get into the Hall of Fame until 2006. That's insane to me. But I just want to remark a little bit on what he did for football as a coach. Okay. So he is the Super Bowl winning coach of the Oakland Raiders, and he's got like most of the records as far as like all-time winning percentage. Okay. He won 75.9% of his games. That's the highest of any coach with at least 100 victories. There are 12 players in the Hall of Fame that he coached. He had been eligible for 22 years, dog. They made him work for it. I think for me, number one, he made football digestible. Like the average football geek that you're dealing with in your fantasy football league, it's all football is so popular, number one, because we're all degenerates, but also number two, because the game is so digestible. So John Madden has a second act, a second Hall of Fame act with Pat Summerall. You know, Jason and I are in our 40s. We watched John Madden and Pat Summerall for the better part of 2 decades. And he effectively becomes a tastemaker for football. He revolutionizes the way we see football. That first down marker that we see, he was the one actually saying, hey, why can't you actually just put it on the damn screen? So many of the technological advances that we see in football today are because he was a visionary that was pushing the medium forward. And so to me, that's almost like, you know, you compare sport greats where they have to change the rules. Like, oh man, this player is way too good. We got to change the rules. We got to make we got to make it fair for everybody else. Well, in the case of John Madden changed it so it was fair for the rest of us to actually enjoy the game of football. And lastly, a third act. We get the Madden NFL franchise, the video game. And that changes everything. Like I wasn't, you know, a big football guy, you know, 20 years ago, but I loved and I still love video games. And for many people, the Madden game was The one game that they picked up every year. Why? Because they loved football that much. And I can only imagine how many PlayStations and Xboxes have sold the last 20 years because of one John Madden and the Madden football bus. Jason, what are your thoughts about the cultural significance of one John Madden?
Terrence, I thank you. That was a very well put together kind of presentation, we'll say, for lack of a better word, when it comes to the different acts of John Madden. I definitely have an opinion about his cultural significance and relevancy uh, that he left on society. But I think one thing you definitely point out is that to a lot of people, they didn't know John Madden was a coach. In actuality, you mentioned he was a Super Bowl winning coach. Correct me if I'm wrong, Terrence. Was he not the coach of the first ever Super Bowl when they beat the Chiefs? I want to say that he was a coach of that team, that Raiders.
Mm-mm.
You sure?
Pretty certain. Yeah.
Okay, well look it up while I'm talking. But but yeah, a lot of people don't know that. No, I admittedly for a long time I didn't know that either. Obviously, like you said, we're watching them with Pat Summerall for 20 years. It was during that time frame when I realized, oh, he used to coach too. You know, they showed him video of this team carrying him off the field or carrying him on the field, whatever, after they won the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. And that's when I really first know that he was a coach. You know, um, but yeah, I definitely not gonna say which was his best act. They were all pretty great. Like I say, he was a Hall of Fame coach, definitely Hall of Fame level legendary broadcaster. You know, I think a lot of people probably measure, they emulate themselves as far as their commentating career after what John Madden did. The innovation, the idea, the fact that he was a coach and he was able to get very much in depth with the game when it comes to his commentary, explaining things to us. I think that helped a lot of people even just understand the game better beyond just what they see on the field, people hitting each other. But I had to say that I have to imagine that his true cultural significance and his really long lasting legacy is going to be this third act, like you mentioned, the video games. I mean, you probably know this from what you're reading up, but do you realize, Terrence, when the first release was of Madden football was? It was a lot
Mm,
sooner than I thought it
no.
was.
What do you got?
Supposedly, and I'll do if I'm going to fact check this, but supposedly, according to more than a couple things I'm reading, the late '80s, June of '88. So now it probably didn't get more popular until way later, which I get that. But even so, even if you go back to just 2000, if you want to make that the popular when the popularity started was 2000 ish, which I think we know was before that. That's 20 years ago. And the game is still popular. They just came out with another release not too long ago, I think, or it's coming soon, whatever. And these kids still playing that game probably have no clue who John Madden is or what he did. They just know the video game. And I feel like if every year that keeps coming out, he's deceased now, but every year that keeps coming out, it's going to be even more so the case. Kids aren't going to know who the hell he is, but they're going to know the video game. Even so, my mom, she claims to be, she's not a sports fan, right? Sorry, mom, but you're not. but she knows John Madden from all the years that me and my brother were playing Madden football in the living room. Funny story, real quick. She actually thought because of our deep emotion in the game of Madden football, she thought Madden was like because it made you mad playing the game, not just not because it was named after somebody, an actual person.
Get out.
I swear, Mama, let me know if I'm lying, but I'm telling you, you told me this. You may not remember saying that, but I distinctly remember it. She thought it was based off people getting mad at the game as opposed to being named after somebody else. Quick story, had to tell that. But even so, now even somebody who's not a sports fan knows who John Madden is because of the video games. I think that's what's going to be a longer lasting legacy is that because those games are going to keep coming. 30 years from now, obviously I can see the future, but 30 years from now, it's still going to be a thing. Kids might not be readily asking who's John Madden, but the fact that his name's out there on the game, 30 years from now, for going back to when the first game was released, I think that's going to be his lasting legacy on the culture is the Madden football game. Now, even though I stopped playing the game long ago because it made me too mad because the game be cheating. But hashtag game be cheating. but still, that's I think no disrespect to everything he's done, but I think that's going to be his long lasting legacy when it comes to the culture because that culture is going to be around for a long time. Video games ain't going nowhere. That Madden football ain't going nowhere. You know, I'm sure your grandkids are going to be playing Madden 50. You know, so so yeah, so I think that's a long lasting legacy, and there's nothing wrong with that. He had three great acts, like you said. Excuse me, but it's funny that the one he's probably the least involved in. Not say he wasn't involved, but compared to him actually coaching and commentating, he probably has less of a hand in the Madden stuff. He just has his name on it, but that's his lasting legacy there. But even with that football game though, like I mentioned with his commentating, him kind of with his breakdowns, let him kind of teaching people the game, from the couch. The Madden football games is even the same thing. Because now people get to play coach a little bit, and they get to see plays designed, so people have a better understanding of what's going on in the field when they're watching it, which is really funny because that's really true. Probably there's terminology that's being thrown out during the games. People probably had no clue fully what it meant until they started playing the football game. Like I had no clue what a skinny post was before I started getting heavy into the Madden games. You know, so that's just my opinion. Obviously, not a fact. Terrence, what do you think?
Well, one, I think I don't want to sell the kids short. I think the video game medium is a perfect laboratory to actually provide that history lesson, to ensure that his legacy does not go unnoticed and unlearned. And that, and look, I know EA paid a pretty penny to ensure they captured John Madden's essence. So without without Madden, there really wasn't a football game.
You know,
He made the football game. All of the voiceovers that changed everything. I mean, there's literally talk of how EA execs were like, "Hey, man, we really want to do a football game with you. We can probably do 7-on-7." He's like, "Well, that's not football." And they were like, "Well, it might take us a couple years to actually get this to a point for the tech to actually get to what we need it to be." And John Madden proceeds to say, "Well, wait." And so I feel like in a weird way, it was John Madden's world and we were just living in it, man. And what a ride it had been. What a legacy. What a life, man. Is that, his the game that we know and love changed for the better. And for that, Mr. Madden, we salute you.
so regarding the video games, according to an article from New York Times, Madden, who died Tuesday, which again, also you mentioned the date earlier, helped bring to life a series of football video games that generated $7 billion in revenue since 1988. Um, that's a lot of money, bro, from a video game. I think that averages out to about 14 million a year ish or so, something like that. That's pretty good income for a video game. I'll take that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And you mentioned other football games, and as you mentioned that, I'm trying to think of any other football game that might have been semi popular in that time frame. I think there was like an NFL 2K game, maybe.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, the NFL 2K game was pretty good, especially the NFL 2K. Uh, I mean, the first NFL 2K came out on Dreamcast in 2000. It was an amazing experience, actually. And then 2K5, that was the Terrell Owens joint that was only $20. So, you know, at that point, EA said, okay, we are going to have to secure this franchise because we can't have you undermining the value of the of the game. So yeah, man. John Madden put a lot of people's kids through college. All right.
yeah, put a lot of kids through college and helped them out through college playing Madden football all day long. So, um, I yeah, it's I keep thinking that story about my mom and the whole Madden part. That was really hilarious when she said that the first time. I'm sorry. But,
No need to apologize.
yeah.
That is funny as hell, and
Yeah.
that explains a lot about the Ross household too.
Okay. See, I'm taking offense to that now. I'm taking offense to that. But yeah, man. Yeah, Joe Montana football. I remember that. I think that was on Sega as well, maybe. But I remember that was a thing. Everybody throwing the hat backpack stuff like that. But as far as the hype popularity, I can't. Again, off the top of my head, if anybody thinks of another one, message us and let us know. But I can't think of anything else comparable when it comes to popularity overall during at any point in this time frame. Not obviously, there's no football game that's been as long as a franchise as this. But even when it comes to ones that came out for maybe a handful of years or more, I can't think of any other that had the popularity, which probably is to the point as what we're talking about here. That there was nothing bigger than Madden football, and that's all because of obviously his image. Obviously on the get on the for the most part on some of the games that was part of it, people had to know who he was. Even in later on, once his face was off the cases and stuff like that for the games, they're still selling because of the content. Obviously, because again, like I mentioned, he wasn't the one building the actual graphics and stuff like that. He wasn't doing that, but because of his mind that went into the game when it comes to, again, like you said, the quality of the game, 11 on 11, the plays and stuff like that. That's all from the mind from actual coach, which in this case him. So so yeah, man, I that's his legacy as far as long lasting. Obviously, you and I know he was a coach. You and I both know he was a commentator. But unless those lessons are learned, like you said, whenever you hear Madden, what people are going to think about these days, the video game. Even you and me, and we're 40. You know what I mean? So as generations come on, and when we're 60, the people that are 40, 20 years from now, that grew up playing the video games just like we did, that's going to be his long lasting legacy. And if I'm still 100 years old and there's still Madden games out, I mean, we're already past the point where the video game's been out longer than he was commentating and coaching, as far as in the NFL. So, so yeah, man, it's only growing from here. And there's nothing wrong with that legacy. $7 billion. That sounds good to me from a
Yeah,
video game.
yeah, it's a lot of money, but I also think not just the money, but the name and the quality also legitimized video games. It legitimized that these platforms. You got people, listen, you got people, they probably, say, you know what? I don't give a damn about any of these other video games, but I care about this. I will plunk down X amount of dollars for a PlayStation or an Xbox or a Genesis or a Super Nintendo.
Basically, you're calling on people that bought every single video game system whenever it came out, which is basically you.
I listen. I want to make sure we get both ends of the generational spectrum.
He's definitely not to this level as of right now, which could still change. But back in the day, Terrence was a huge gamer, more so than me. Terrence would have like two huge TV screens up, and there's been times we were playing video games on both of them. Well, at least he was. Yes, Terrence, I remember that. So yeah, Terrence definitely a huge gamer. Had tons of systems. Had a whole, shelves of video games, old school stuff like that. I mean, there's people I knew that were more into it than he was, but he was definitely on that spectrum of quote unquote I'm a gamer. So yeah.
Yeah. Yep. But again, salute to the man, the myth, the legend, one John Madden, and Godspeed. All right. That concludes this segment and this show. Coming up next, we'll be wrapping up the show with our final thoughts.